Thank you, folks, for being here. Remember with me, if you will, Joe Biden ran on being a moderate, but the minute he was sworn in, his true colors began to show. Immediately, he began pandering to the most radical, far leftist faction of the Democratic Party. For Pete's sakes, folks, he brought Bernie Sanders to the team. Y'all remember when Sanders ran? He had no problem saying that he was a socialist. Remember the bumper sticker, "Feel the burn"? We're feeling the burn, all right. And sadly enough, Americans are feeling the burn even worse. It's unbelievable. No wonder we're being served up a multi-trillion-dollar socialist spending spree. This is an absolute disgrace. At a time when inflation is at an all-time high, the Democrats' answer is more spending. They need to go back to school and take Economics 101. Anyone on the planet that's ever taken Econ 101 knows that more spending will only exacerbate the problem. You know why the Dems are having such a hard time passing this monstrosity? Do you know why? Because the American people don't want it. It's just that simple. The only people that want this are the extreme left and their power-hungry group. That's the only ones that want this. Let me tell you what these bills really are. $420 billion with a B dollar in tax hikes on small businesses. I owned a small business for 35 years. I know them when I see them coming. $800 billion in tax hikes on American businesses that will kill U.S. jobs, that Marjorie Taylor Greene was referring to, that will surrender economically to China, Russia, Japan, and Europe, and make it better for businesses to be in a foreign company than in the United States of America. A new tax on retirement plan that hurts workers and seniors by punishing businesses that invest in their own stock, for Pete's sakes. $300 billion in new spending that includes incentives to the jobless to stay home rather than work, causing 2 million workers to exit the workforce. And we wonder why we have a problem with supply chain and with finding employees. This will be a very bleak Christmas. Turns out that the Grinch that stole Christmas lives in the White House. This is going to be bad. $550 billion in green welfare subsidies for the wealthy and big corporations. $545 billion in budget gimmicks. Budget gimmicks. They're trying to make this more palatable for the American public. And now they're so unpopular with the American people. Biden's approval rating is an all-time low, more than any other president since World War II. So they need a win. They want to win. They've got to push their agenda through. And here we stand, they're going to do it on Halloween weekend. How spooky is that? So after this embarrassing display of division that you saw in the Democratic Party, Pelosi wants to jam the infrastructure package through. This is a mess, and we would be better off without this package. If you watched the press conference Pelosi just had, she was asked a question about the issues in this bill, and she said, it's not about issues, it's about values. Well, Madam Speaker, you're darn right it's about values. Do you value the American businesses? Do you value the freedom Americans need to have, whether it's masks or education, kids in school? Do you value the future for our kids and grandkids? You're right, it's about values. Don't sell us down the river. With that, I'm going to yield to my good friend, Ben Klein.
Thank you, Randy. I was just sitting in my office watching Nancy Pelosi have her press conference, trying to tell the American people that we're going to have to pass it once again to find out what's in it. And I got a call from one of my constituents, a very good friend, who reminded me that they sent me up here to help Washington get its fiscal house in order. Yeah. And instead, what we've got is a train wreck made possible by unified Democrat control of Washington, D.C. Our national debt is approaching $30 trillion. Inflation is reaching a 13-year high. Gas prices, the highest that we've seen since 2014. We cannot continue down this same path. The left now wants us to spend trillions more creating cradle-to-grave socialist programs that will make the American people dependent on government assistance. And we can get an idea of what is in this bill, this 2,500 pages. Massive tax increases on American families and job creators. tax breaks and handouts to those who don't need it, props up the Green New Deal at the expense of small businesses, and reduces our energy independence. It weaponizes the IRS and leaves rural America behind. This is a terrible bill for our country and for its people, and I'll say it again, we can't afford it. When are we finally going to say enough is enough? Republicans are ready to say enough is enough and vote no on this bill. We need to get this country back on track, and it begins with fiscal responsibility and good governance. Republicans are standing for good governance. I pray there are a half a dozen Democrats in this House of Representatives left who still stand for good governance. Thank you.
Good job.
Ladies and gentlemen, America faces a $30 trillion debt. That's 30,000 billion. Try and get your heads wrapped around that. And pay attention, America, what's happening in your capital that stands behind us, because we are at war for the preservation of our republic. The future of America is at stake. These men and women of the Freedom Caucus that stand with me here today are the point of the spear. The Democrats are trying to push through a multi-trillion-dollar combination of two bills that essentially represent their entire socialist agenda. That's why they're calling it the Biden agenda. We stand against it. Why? Because we represent the American people. We represent the future of freedom and the preservation of our republic, the restoration of our constitutional freedoms, rights, and protections. The generations yet unborn of Americans deserve excellent representation in this body. And I am finding in my service to America that the Freedom Caucus is exactly the type of representation that our founders intended. We are bloodied and battled, and we are engaged in this war to preserve our nation. The Democrats' agenda must be defeated. Stand with us. And if one Republican stands with the Democrats to support this socialist nightmare, as a constitutionalist, I recognize your right to be wrong, but by all means, my God, sir, turn in your Republican card, because if you support their agenda, you're not a Republican. Stand with America, Americans, and America first. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you. That was Clay Higgins from Louisiana. I thank the men and women of the House Freedom Caucus. We are the point of the spear. We fight this battle constantly. And there are two bills, as was said. You've got an infrastructure bill that's over $1 trillion, with hardly any of it going to actual infrastructure. Then you have a reconciliation bill, short-term spending bill, that's being used to implement, as with the infrastructure bill, massive spending, massive social programs. Now here's the deal. Here's what you need to know. I can't imagine a single Republican voting yes on that reconciliation bill. I don't know of one who is. My biggest concern, though, is with that infrastructure bill, which is the key that will be turned to unlock that reconciliation bill. Because right now the progressives have said they will not vote for that infrastructure bill unless they can get, they won't vote for the infrastructure bill unless they can get the reconciliation bill done the way they want. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, there should be no Republicans that vote for that infrastructure bill either, because that is the key. No Republicans should vote for that. We should all stand together. When we don't stand together, we lose our leverage. This is a time to gain leverage. The Democrats should own this. The leftists in Congress, the socialists in Congress should own this horrific regulatory bill that will change the nature of this nation for a generation to come, and maybe longer. With that, I thank my members of the Freedom Caucus, and we'll take maybe a question or two, if there's anyone who has a question. All right, great. Thank you very much. With that, we are